Brilliant. Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out at Adam Booth's gym in Red Hill in Surrey. Not going to give away the address, don't worry. Adam, how are you feeling today? You've got most of your stable in?
It's good, yeah. You could have given the address to your cameraman, then he could have found it on time.
We're not gonna name the cameraman, John, but we've had some problems with the trains this morning. But we're all here now. Everyone's friends again. We're all happy. This is one of the first sessions back with your stable after the summer break. New season about to start. What's the focus on in camp at the moment?
Feels like a rehab therapy at the moment. Same as usual. It's the first week, so I'll only hurt them twice this week. They just won't know which days it's going to be.
That sounds good. Sounds good. Not so good for them, but it sounds good for people that are lucky enough to watch, like us. Just tell us a bit. We want to take you back a little bit. You've been involved in the sport for, I'm not even sure how many years. Maybe that's the first question. How long have you been involved in boxing, and how did you first get involved?
Well, I boxed as an amateur, so that was 1982, I think. So started then.
Yeah, so 1982. We're looking at what, 36 years? Wow. Does that make you feel old?
Is that 36 years?
82, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Quick maths. Does it make me feel old? No. You saying it makes me feel old.
I've already committed a faux pas, and we're like a minute into the interview. You first got involved, as you said, as an amateur boxer, and I believe you had a serious leg injury that forced you out of your competitive career and eventually into training. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've cut out sort of decades of activity there. Yeah, like my activity in sport stopped because I broke my leg playing football, and then there was a few years of nothingness and then a bit of studying, and then went back to the boxing gym really just to get fit, and then I started taking people on the pads.
And that was at Fitzroy Lodge?
Yeah, that was at the Fitzroy Lodge. And I enjoyed doing the pad work, and it just went from there.
One of the first people you worked with at Fitzroy Lodge was obviously David Haye. You guys knew each other as teenagers. What was it about him or your relationship with him that made him stand out as someone you could work with long term?
Firstly, he was the teenager at that point. I wasn't the teenager. It was obvious. You have to be, you have to be foolish not to realise the natural genetic ability he had, and it was obvious. And he caused a stir very early on in his amateur career. And he's very clever, genetically gifted, and it was the combination of his intellect and his genetic ability that first kind of intrigued me and caught my eye.
We're going to talk a bit more about Haye later on when we talk about some of the notable fighters you've trained over the years. One thing I did want to ask though, what was it about you as a young, relatively inexperienced trainer that gave you the confidence that you could take David Haye to where he needed to go? Because some would say at your age back then, there was a level of arrogance there.
No, because I never thought about where it was going to go. I just used to go to the gym every day and enjoy the moments, enjoy doing pad work, enjoy. There was a few fighters there that I would do things, like do bits with and do coaching bits with. Really, just because I was just somebody that couldn't do it anymore, and so I would sort of say the things that I used to tell myself, and it just started from there. When I didn't really listen to many people when I used to compete and box or play football. I just used to do my own thing, and so me doing my own thing in a coaching sense was just me being me, and it was just an extension of that. It wasn't an arrogance, it's just how I chose to do things.
From that point, how much of what you picked up along the way was due to self-teaching and how much was due to learning from other people?
We pick up, when you say pick things up along the way, it's all a journey, and along the way we always try and see and understand things, and the way that I would do it is that I would watch a certain fight or a certain scenario, imagine what it felt like, try and put myself in that situation, and then figure out how to verbalise the feeling.
How much research was involved? I'm thinking particularly over the physiology side and the nutrition side.
Well, I went away and studied, but that was separate, anatomy and physiology, because that was my own curiosity. But I actually didn't do that to benefit the boxing. I just did it because I developed a natural curiosity on it, and also injury rehabilitation and treatment of injuries as well from my own personal experience. So the anatomy and physiology side that then went into strength and conditioning was just an interest aside from boxing.
That makes you something of an all-rounder. current age, partly influenced by MMA, I think, we see a lot more boxers using a boxing trainer, a separate strength and conditioner, a separate nutritionist, and so on and so forth. Where do you sit on that whole debate? Would you like to see trainers generally being an all-rounder and covering all bases?
The debate of what? The debate of boxing coaches being more knowledgeable and having more extensive understanding of how to train.
That, and also having overall control of a boxer's regime rather than involving experts in their specific fields.
Well, I've kind of come full circle on that, because when I started stitching strength and conditioning to the boxing and a lot of trial and error, what I've come to the conclusion of is that the majority of things, not just some things, but the majority of things that make complete sense on paper, anatomically and physiologically, actually don't work for boxers, because there are certain intrinsic elements involved in being a fighter and physical elements that actually strength and conditioning can harm. I'm not going to say what, I'll let people figure it out for themselves, but I think that I've realised that it's easier to get it wrong than it is to get it right with the strength and conditioning side of it. And it's a shame as well, because a true boxing coach studies his art, and the art of not just coaching fighting, but the art of the psychological management of a fighter as well. And then you get strength and conditioning coaches, and there's some good ones out there, but there's some not so good ones out there. But they come along and they bleat out some anatomy and physiology that the boxing coach doesn't understand, sounds clever to the fighter, gets involved in the fighter, then starts to apply their ego and whatever they want to do, believing that it's right for the fighter. But I see there's some physiological elements that are actually wrong for the fighter. And that's a shame, because that it's what you do that will show out in a fight, not just with your boxing, but with your eating, with your lifestyle, and with the conditioning training that you do as well. But everyone, nobody thinks they're doing it wrong, regardless of what you do and who you are. Everyone thinks they're doing it right. Only time shows whether we're doing it right or wrong. Well, like if I said to you, I need to find a dentist, you wouldn't say to me, go and see my dentist, he's crap. Would you? You go and see your dentist, you think...
What are you trying to say about my teeth?
We'll get on to that. But you wouldn't, right? So everyone thinks they're doing it right, and everyone has to follow their own journey, and in time it shows out who's right and who's wrong. I might be wrong in my opinion of strength and conditioning.
But would you rather make those strength and conditioning decisions yourself and live and die by your own decisions, rather than have an independent strength and conditioner with one of your fighters?
Absolutely what I do. I want to know everything that they do. And if I believe it's wrong, I'll say that's not what I think, and I'll explain why, and we take it from there. And then if they don't agree with me, normally it's because they don't understand it. So we'll talk some more. And I don't have problems with that, and they have that faith in me. And you need to have the faith and the trust of your students. But like I said, strength and conditioning is becoming more and more prevalent in sport. There are certain sports that you can measure whether what you are doing is right or wrong by time or distance. Javelin, sprinting, running, okay? It's easily measurable. But in a combat sport, it's not so easy, because you can actually get it all wrong. How many times have you seen a fellow in the ring totally out of shape, who clearly hasn't trained, against a dude that's trained his arse off, and the out of shape fella puts him on his arse, right? So you can do it perfectly right, but lose. Or you can not do it right at all and win, because that's combat sport. So it becomes almost anecdotal in the evidence of whether you're doing it right or wrong, and that's the grey area that you can drive a bus through, right? That's where people's ego and influence and distraction can get in the way of what a fighter believes.
At what point in your coaching career did you realise it was a career rather than just a hobby and something you enjoyed, as you alluded to earlier?
It is a hobby.
But there must have been a point where you realised this could be something that pays the bills, something that takes me forward. This is my life now, or at least a big part of it.
When I went to the cash point and realised that the first thing I saw wasn't a minus, that's when you realise that, okay, this could be a living, when you start earning money from it.
And when was that? Was that when Haye turned pro, or...?
No, because I trained some pros before that. I worked with Gary Logan, and who's been my friend since we were 14 or 14, I think. So I'd made some money training fighters prior to that. When David Haye first turned pro, yes, there was money, but it wasn't what people thought it was.
Well, maybe let me rephrase it. What point in your life would you have put boxing trainer on your CV or your social media profile or whatever?
Well, there was no social media when I started being a boxing coach, but I guess from the moment I started taking people on the pads, if I could have had a business card that said boxing coach, I would have put it on them.
Business cards, so old-fashioned, but I love you for it.